In today's episode, I talk with Coach Mark of the Point University men's program. If you like our interviews, I would truly appreciate it if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, or if you're more of a podcast person, subscribe on your favorite platform. We're on Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, and all the other podcast platforms out there. And don't forget, follow us on the various social media accounts: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We are at discover_CS. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Mark Wozniak from the Point University men's program. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Uh, you guys are located. Point University is for West Point, Georgia, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And crazy thing is, you guys are on the west side of the river, but you're technically still in Georgia. So for those of you who don't know that part of the country, check out a map. It's kind of interesting to see the little nugget there that you guys are sitting on. But anyway, let's start talking out first about recruiting. As an NAI program, when are you really starting to talk to players and build your recruiting class? What your players? What do you tend to start really?
Yeah, so typically we start in their junior year, kind of just identifying targets and players that we think would fit our profile of players we're looking for. And then as they get into that senior year, we're really kind of nail down the players we're really interested in and then try to obviously get them on campus and try to make some offers and really finalize who we really want to bring in. But that's really typically when we start.
Now, is I'm guessing you guys have a development side, correct?
We do, yeah.
Okay. Um, so when is there a particular roster size that you're looking to hit every year, and how does that kind of work with your recruiting?
Yeah, so typically we have a roster size around 40 to 45, just depending on the year. Um, and every year is a little different with, who we need to bring in. Like most development sides are, ours is predominantly domestic-based kids. We feel like there's a lot of need for them to still get game time and things like that, especially while they're transitioning from high school to college life and trying to manage their time and laundry and then training and even sometimes yeah obviously playing against much older guys. So yeah, typically like this year we're looking to bring in a bigger domestic class for that reserve team, predominantly because we're graduating 6 players from that reserve team. So um, most of the time it's kind of split 50-50 on our numbers and first team, reserve team, and then even domestic and international. But that's typically about our size.
Okay, that kind of answered my next question is what that split looks like on domestic international. So in terms of your recruiting efforts, um, on the domestic side, are there tournaments that are kind of the must-see TV for you that you got to get to each year to help identify players?
Yeah, there are obviously some of the ones in Georgia that we typically try to go to. But I think for us it's more of trying to identify the ones that are going to be really good fits for athletes we're looking for. So um, I would say we don't really typically go to the big nationwide ones. I think oftentimes we get kind of lost in those players and they don't really see us at that point. So we found a lot of more success in I would say the smaller to medium sized tournaments where you've got 3 or 4 brackets maybe and quality teams, but not hundreds of U19 teams and you're one of 300 coaches. So we don't typically go to Disney or things like that just because I feel like we end up not getting the exposure we need to then try to introduce ourselves. So a lot of the local southeast ones we really go to.
And how do you generally recruit your international players? Are you going overseas? Are you working with agencies? Just looking at video? How does that work?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of both. So we'll if we can, we like to go and see them in person, but obviously the cost and everything like that makes it difficult. With the pandemic, it's been a little bit more challenging on that aspect. So more of really working with agencies to try to then see film and see the recommendations, and a lot of it is based on a previous experience. So we've had really good success with an agency and a country, and we tell them, hey, we really like this person you sent us. Do you have someone similar to that? And then they'll say, okay, you like them. Here's someone you'd like as well. So, and then obviously we do a lot of interviewing and communicating with those recruits to kind of try to get to know them, see if they fit us well.
Makes sense. Uh, do you guys do your own camps or work other camps? Do camps fit into your recruiting process at all?
Yeah, so we do other camps. A lot of the insurance stuff that goes with doing your own camp is just an extra hassle and tricky part. So we end up kind of partnering with the other big camps. So we've done stuff with Exact, and other camps kind of in those natures where you go and they bring all the coaches in, and then we get to watch and kind of recruit and from there, which is nice.
Okay. Um, in terms of whether it's camps, film, tournaments, wherever you're seeing players, how do you judge them? What's your hierarchy of things you're looking for in a player, whether that's on the field attributes or off the field stuff?
Yeah, I think for us a big one is their nonverbal, their attitude. So I know a lot of players will mess up. That's just normal, and especially when they go from high school to college, there's going to be a transitional period. So for me, I'm always looking at what happens after they make a mistake, what their response is going to be, and so obviously they need to be able to perform well. And in certain positions, we look for certain technical and tactical attributes. We want them to be comfortable and play on the ball well, and be able to play a two touch and one touch if they can. But I think probably towards the top of that list, like I said, is what do they do when they mess up? Are they a kid that gets mad and for the next 10 seconds is not even paying attention, or they're the one that they mess up and they're the first one to try to recover and win it back and try to help their team in that way. So for us, that's kind of a big indicator of their overall character, which is huge.
Okay. And the question a lot of parents always want to know is, well, how much is this whole thing going to cost, right? So, and I'm not holding you to hard numbers here, but can you just give me a rough idea of, what is a typical student athlete looking at as they walk into Point, and whether it's a mix of academic, athletic, what other money's available, and what the whole picture looks like?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, it changes for each student depending on what their GPA is and their SAT, ACT scores. For the kids that are from Georgia, which is where we are, then if they have a 3.0 or above, they can be eligible for the Hope Scholarship, which is really great because it gets them an additional $5,000 in academic, kind of helping with that financial aid. We do stack academic and athletics, so that is a benefit that students can combine those. So obviously the student that has, a good GPA and a good SAT scores, combine that with their Hope Scholarship and potentially any Pell Grant money. There's going to be a cost for the investment in Point University, but obviously part of it does depend on some of those factors of the GPA, and then obviously, what their overall expenses are going to be in terms of how well they've done in school, and then obviously if they're able to receive any assistance from the government in that way.
Okay. Well, let's talk more about the school. I'm sure there's some folks out there not familiar with Point University. So, besides what I can find on the website and learn about the school, kind of give me the behind the scenes. What are some other awesome things or some really great stuff about your school we may not know about?
Yeah. Well, you kind of hinted in the beginning, we're really right on the border of Georgia and Alabama. So part of the school is technically in Alabama, and your phone will change from Eastern to Central time zone if you're not careful. So we have to tell everybody go Eastern, because then you'll be either an hour late or an hour early, depending on what you're doing. The school is a smaller Christian school, like you've probably seen online. I think probably a very unique thing is that there's about 85% of the students are student athletes. So almost everyone's going to have that same college life feel where they're balancing school and practice and travel, and they know what it means to be a student athlete. So then the teachers really do understand that as well, because most of the school, like I said, is a student athlete as well. So there's that really opportunity to develop community because everyone else is doing the same thing you are. Um, and then obviously we have kind of the benefit of being in a small town without being too far away from any big city. So we're only about 20 minutes from Auburn and then only an hour south of Atlanta. So close enough to go do everything on the weekend or even at a nighttime if you want, but not so close where you have to deal with traffic and all the headaches of very high priced rent and all that stuff. So it's kind of a nice balance between the two.
No, that's great. Well, in terms of the academic side of things, can you talk a little bit about how do your student athletes kind of balance their studies and sport commitments, and what kind of support mechanisms does the school provide?
Yeah. So part of what we do within the team is we have a mandatory study hall once a week for any of our student athletes when they first come as freshmen, just to kind of help with that transition. And then also anyone who doesn't have a 3.0 or above, we have that time set aside for them that they need to come and spend that time working on it. The school also has free tutoring and support services like a writing lab where students can turn in a paper, a couple days ahead of time and basically almost guarantee getting a much better grade than if they just turned it in by themselves. So really a lot of help there. And so there's definitely a lot of support from that side. And then also I would say from the teachers where they're going to help you knowing, hey, you have to miss because you're traveling next week. Okay, hey, take your test when you get back on this day and you can come take it at that time. So they're going to help you in that process instead of basically being the other way where they're going to say, well, that's on your fault. You got to figure out. Like they're going to work with you knowing that they want you to be successful too.
Okay, great. Well, even though there's never such thing as a typical week of the season, can you do your best to walk me through what maybe an average week might look like in terms of when are you getting up, going to class, eating meals, practicing games, just kind of an overall picture of what that might look like?
Yeah, definitely. Every day is going to be a little different depending on the student's class schedule, but typically they'll have classes probably 2 to 3 a day. So we only have classes Monday through Thursday. So every Friday, there's no class, which is kind of nice. So typically, a student will have, they get up for breakfast if they want to, probably around 8 or 9, and then they'll have their class. Let's say they have a 10 o'clock and then a 12 o'clock and a 2 o'clock. And then 2 days a week, we have training in the afternoon at 3:30. And then the other 2 days, we've got training late in the evenings at 8 o'clock at night. So we kind of rotate between afternoon and evening. So those students, depending on those days, we kind of balance their schedule if they need to have more time to do homework and stuff like that in the evening, or if they need to get it done early in the day because we train. And then normally we'd have games on Saturday and Wednesday. So we kind of have that Champions League schedule where we're then doing that. So then a Thursday'd be our training session, more a light recovery day, and then Friday's more of a pregame. We're not traveling, and then we play again on that Saturday. So typically during the week, we'll train one time a day. Sundays are typically days that are off and due for recovery and seeing athletic trainer and things like that if needed, which is nice to have that day for them to relax and obviously catch up on homework. But a typical day is going to have that one time of practice, probably a couple classes during the day, depending on their schedule. And then obviously meals are kind of depending on when they're free to go to the dining hall and go eat.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the team and the soccer side of things. You already talked about kind of your roster size and the development team. So what about the rest of your staff? How many other staff do you have? What roles does each of them play?
Yeah, so I have a full-time assistant and then a graduate assistant as well. And so both of them are very helpful and obviously assisting and working with the first team. And then obviously part of their job is to also be in charge of that development team as well to help them in that transition and help them grow and hopefully be able to make the jump from that development team to be a part of that first team and provide the impact that we look for, as they go out through their career. And so obviously it's a lot of time that we spend together in the office and traveling and recruiting and talking about players. We want to make it an environment where the players feel like they can come in and talk to us and have that connection where they can feel like they can voice their opinions, but also at the same time that, if they're going through a difficult time, that it's a safe place for them to come and have that opportunity to talk as well. So I'm very fortunate that really enjoy working with my assistants as well. And I think it helps the team know that we're all on the same page and we're all trying to really enjoy the process together. But then also, it's not one of us trying to be more important or push down the other person. So we're all kind of really unified as a coaching staff, which I think helps the players know that they can talk to one of us and get the same answer. Not think like, oh, well, that coach likes me and this coach doesn't. There's not like a disunity there.
Oh, that's great. In terms of that development team, so would you say most freshmen coming in are going to start there and move their way up, or how does that dynamic work in terms of the ebb and flow between the two teams?
Yeah, I would say probably most domestic freshmen probably do spend their first year there. I've seen freshmen need a year. I've seen them need 18 months. I've seen some come in and a month later then be ready within that first team. So a lot of it just does depend a little on obviously the position of the player, who's in front of them and the experience that's there, but then also how well they transition and handle the adjustments of college and college soccer. So we're pretty open to know that it's not a one set formula for everybody, and so every person's going to have their own individual journey, and we want to kind of help them in that process and be the best place they can be while they do that.
Okay. Do you guys employ any sort of technology, whether it's film, trackers, anything like that? How does that kind of play into everything you guys do?
Yeah, so we have Huddle, which breaks down our games, and obviously we have that for training as well. And then we also use Instat, and they're really great because they give so much detail into the reports about the passes and where your average position is, and the ratings and the passes completed, challenges won. Very 25 page printout from every game, giving all the details and individual one. So what we do after the games is we'll put that individual evaluation that Instat gives us from each player and put it in their locker, so that the players have the chance to really go over and look at that and evaluate themselves, and then even look over the time and go, wow, like I can tell in that game I played really well, and I won all of my aerial challenges, and I was 80% in my pass completed, and my positioning was really good because I could tell it was actually in my spot, and I wasn't playing left mid and supposed to be playing right mid, and so that's probably our biggest one that we use, and obviously we have the Veil camera as well that we use for getting film and all that. So really try to utilize that technology to give us proper feedback.
That's great. Well, how would you describe, your style of coaching, the team style of play, and just that overall culture of the team?
Yeah. So I'm a big relational coach. So I really enjoy having that personal connection with the players and being able to talk to them, whether it's about a girlfriend problem or what they want to do with their, life when soccer ends. For me, that aspect of who they are is important. And if I can have that connection with them off the field, then that's going to have a better connection on the field. And so that goes into how I like to coach them as a soccer player. I like to ask them questions. So if a player is dribbling down the field and they look to have a shot and they miss the goal, you're not going to hear me scream and yell because I know they messed up. They know they missed. Me yelling at them for that doesn't help them get better. But instead, I try to then, through that relation, say, hey, what was another option? What could you have done instead? And that kind of challenges them to think and be a better thinker in that process. So that next time, now they're trying to think what their options are and try to make the right choice at the right moment. And so a lot of what our coaching is trying to help them become better thinkers by asking them those difficult questions of, hey, what could you have done instead? Or what was another choice you could have made? And now they start to process through that instead of being yelled at because they missed the goal. Well, they know that. I know that. Like, well, why did you miss? How can we fix it and do better next time? So that's a big aspect of it. In terms of how we play, I would say we're a possession-based, attacking-minded team. We want to keep the ball, but we want to attack as much as we can. So if we can break a line of pressure and go forward and go score, then we want to do that as quickly as possible. If we can't, then we want to keep the ball and play 1-2 touch and play out from the back and have players be comfortable playing under pressure, knowing that they can find a solution instead of just kicking the ball down the field and then hoping something positive comes from it or sitting really deep. We want to be on the front foot and kind of go at teams and try to take it to them. So that's our overall approach.
Okay. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here, talked a lot about different things, and I always like to end these the same way, and that's what didn't we cover, whether that's recruiting, school, the team, anything in general you want folks to know. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is what I love to do is help players develop. So I think if I'm doing my job well, players will be developing and getting better every year, both in the classroom and on the field. And ultimately, whenever they're finished with their soccer career, that they're going to look back and see how much they've grown and changed and become a better person and a better student and a better athlete because of their time at the university and in the program. And so I know every student athlete's on a different developmental journey, and I want to do my part to help them grow as much as they can in that process to be at their best. So by the time they're juniors and seniors, that they're playing the best soccer and doing the best in school that they've done before, and then making my job hard by trying to replace them with other players who are equally just as good and ready to develop as well. So I focus on the whole person, not just the student athlete.
Oh, that's great. Well, Coach, we wish you nothing but the best the rest of your season and with next year, and hopefully we'll be able to connect again and see how you guys are progressing.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. We are excited to be part of Podcast Row at the 2023 United Soccer Coaches Convention in Philadelphia from January 11th to the 15th. The convention is the ultimate event for soccer coaches, administrators, and fans of the beautiful game. Ignite your passion through captivating presentations, on-field demonstrations, exhibits, and networking events for any coach. Whether you are attending alone or bringing the whole coaching staff, there's no better place for soccer coaches to learn, network, and experience the latest trends in soccer education. Visit www.unitedsoccercoachesconvention.org to register. Come join us as we celebrate our passion for the beautiful game.